people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest on unbeaten up-and-comer Vergil Ortiz, who's on the mend. Oscar De La Hoya hints at Vergil Ortiz's return in December, says fighting at 154 or 160 is no problem.
Vergil didn't get to have the welterweight run that people thought he would. Do all the things they expected him to do. That's due to Rhabdo.
Vergil Ortiz, the highly regarded welterweight contender from Grand Prairie, Texas, is looking to rebound from a series of serious health issues in the past several years that have complicated his career. The undefeated power puncher was supposed to fight fellow top contender Eimantas Stanionis earlier this year, but their bout was postponed 3 times, 2 of which stemmed from Ortiz's repeated battles with rhabdomyolysis, a life-threatening condition in which the breakdown of muscle can potentially inflict irreparable harm to the kidneys. Some have speculated that a combination of cutting weight and strenuous workouts might be the cause behind Ortiz's battle with rhabdomyolysis. For those not familiar with Vergil, he was always a very big welterweight.
Pushing his limits in order to make it.
Sure, 54, 60, whatever weight division, he and his father feel strong and ready to go. De La Hoya told Fight Hub TV. We're still nailing down the date for December, but that's the plan. Early December, and get him that win so he can feel good, so he can get his mind right, and so he can get back on top and get back on track. Health is, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to put that first. We've taken the necessary steps to make sure that he is 100% come December. De La Hoya made it clear he has no answers regarding Ortiz's medical condition, but he seemed confident that fighting at a higher weight class is a solution. I really don't know, De La Hoya said. I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly what happened.
The rumors and the gossips seem to indicate that what's going on behind the scenes is that Vergil's father is pushing him too hard behind the scenes in the gym.
That, in tandem with making a weight it is no longer safe for him to make, is what may be causing these rhabdomyolysis flare-ups.
The rumor, anyway.
I don't know exactly what happened. All I know is that he's a hard worker, he's a gym rat. That's what it takes to become a world champion. I don't know exactly what happened, but we're moving forward. He'll fight at a different weight division, and he'll be back on top of the world. 54 is doable for Vergil, though I think, given the frequency of rhabdomyolysis flare-ups, 160 might actually be ideal, to where he doesn't have to kill himself. He doesn't have to feel depleted the night of a weigh-in. As stated, Vergil was always a very big welterweight, and a very young fighter, a young man whose body is still growing. That perfect storm, that combination.
In tandem with a father who's pushing him too hard, surely you can see how we might have gotten here.
If you haven't seen Vergil in person, he's a big kid, De La Hoya continued. He can easily carry the weight. It's gonna be no problem. Plus, he has punching power like no other fighter in that division. So 154, 160 is gonna be no problem.
They can move him up to 154 and match him against 147s, or move him to 160 and match him against 154s.
They have to take it easy with him. They have to take it easy on him because they don't want him biting off more than he can chew just yet. The real reason he's moving up in weight is because he's outgrown 147, but that doesn't mean that he's ready for the best and brightest fighters at 154 or 160. So they've got to be careful how they do this.
Take their time.
Because he's still very young, they can take their time. We're looking forward to the opportunities against Crawford, against Spence, against, I hate naming PBC fighters because Al Heyman has them all protected. Yeah, the likes of Crawford, De La Hoya said. You want to go after those top guys, and Vergil's going to be waiting in line, waiting for the opportunity to become a world champion. Now, at 154, which Oscar mentioned, that's a division where the PBC has a lot of fighters, the best and brightest fighters. Even Australia's own Tim Tszyu in his upcoming fight with Brian Mendoza. That's going to be shown here in America on Showtime.
Even though they didn't groom him, even though they didn't build him, he still is one of their fighters at 154.
154 is primarily a PBC division, a PBC weight class where PBC has most of the fighters. I feel like 160 might actually yield more opportunities for Vergil.
Given his condition, he doesn't want to fight at a weight that takes too much out of him. They've got to watch that rhabdomyolysis thing carefully.
You think about what the preventative measures are for rhabdomyolysis. The primary preventative key is hydration, drinking plenty of fluids, especially in preparation for exercise. By consuming plenty of fluids, it will dilute the concentration of myoglobin to aid the kidney in clearing the bloodstream. Exercise in extreme heat leaves one vulnerable to dehydration, and we all know that fighters,
they can sometimes become dehydrated as a result of trying to make the weight. It was just the other day, Sinicia Estrada said she was dehydrated in her last fight. She made the weight, but it took something out of her.
That's why I kind of feel like maybe Vergil should just go to 160 and ease his way into that division, taking his time. Remember, he's young. He doesn't have to rush anything.
Sharpen what he has. Sharpen what he knows.
Watch his diet, and for God's sake, hire a nutritionist.
Just as well as keeping him busy. Don't let him wait out too long for a fight.
Ballooning in weight in between fights. The more busy you keep the fighter, the closer to his fight weight he'll remain throughout the entirety of the calendar year.
So keep him active.
That way, when it's time to make the weight for a fight, it won't be as steep a drop for young Vergil.
You know, like I said, if they're going to have him at 154, bring up some 147s, at least for the first few fights. And if they're going to go to 160, then bring up some 154s. Ease him back into activity.
So by the time he's ready to start taking on tough challenges, guys like Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu, they'll be moving up to middleweight, and Vergil may be ready for them.
Sadly, I don't think Errol Spence Jr. is ever going to fight Vergil Ortiz or Terrence Crawford. Terrence has got bigger fish to fry.
But guys like Tim Tszyu, Xander Zayas,
Jesus Ramos,
Sebastian Fundoria, these younger junior middleweights, 154 pounders, at some point they're going to move up. Vergil wants to get a head start on these guys before they do that. In men's middleweight news, WBC President Mauricio Suleiman says, "We talked in depth with Mall Charlo. We're convinced that he's ready to return. But is he?"
It was never disclosed. It was never clarified what exactly was Mall Charlo going through and what he still might be going through that has kept him out of action for so long.
Mall Charlo, the WBC middleweight champion, was present at the NABF convention and received everyone's greetings and support. It was wonderful to see him with his wife, his mother, and his youngest daughter. We talked in depth and we were convinced that he's ready to return to the ring after a long absence due to physical injuries and suffering from mental health issues and wellness, Suleiman said. The WBC decided long ago to fully support him during this delicate process. An interim championship was ordered in order to maintain activity in the division and give him sufficient time necessary for his full recovery. Carlos Adames is the WBC's interim champion and has defended his title successfully. Charlo is now very close to returning to the ring and continuing his career as an undefeated world champion, admirably representing the WBC.
There's no reason that they shouldn't have labeled him a champion in recess in the last 2 going on 3 years. There's no reason.
If he was going through so much outside of the ring, injuries, mental health issues, that's the appropriate time to label him a champion in recess because he needs a break. And upon his return, so long as he can still make the weight, he'll get his crack at the apple, a crack at his old belt.
It's what they should have did.
Big part of the reason the men's middleweight division isn't now what it used to be, the hot and thriving weight class where big fights happen, is because of stuff like this. One of the champions at the weight, one of the more well-known champions at the weight, has been missing in action for close to 3 years.
At least if the belt would have still been in circulation, perhaps someone would have unified it. Perhaps we would have got some good fights out of it. The middleweight division is dying on the vine because of stuff like this.
Now, Jamal's brother, believes surrounding himself with the wrong people has led to his brother's issues.
A ways back, we heard something about a back injury. Then we start hearing about mental health struggles.
Mental health, a blanket term that does not describe what exactly they're talking about. What exactly is Jermall supposedly dealing with? Now, Jermell says, I think that he just surrounded himself with some of the wrong people.
Okay.
Who's there in your ear trying to tell you to get better? If you're going to bounce back, go ahead and bounce back and let that be your fight. Every day, according to multiple reports, Jermall's issues are family-related. The current WBC middleweight titleist has admitted in the past that a divorce has been one of the demons he's been recently fighting.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Do you know how many Joe Blows in today's society, in the rat race, they don't get to take time off because they're on the outs with their missus, because they're on the outs with their wife, or because they're in the process of getting a divorce.
They are still expected to show up to work every single day while they deal with that. So why is Jermall getting special exception?
Jermell's comments on the whole thing are intriguing. Jermell, who said, if anything is wrong with him, you can't be content with just having the issue other than fixing the issue. It seems to me, based on what Jermell is saying,
Call me crazy, but it doesn't sound like Jermell is treating the situation as delicately as Mauricio Suleiman.
perhaps it's because Jermell isn't the one getting the bribe and Mauricio is. Think about what Jermell said. You can't be content with just having the issue other than fixing the issue. In Jermell's opinion, is that the problem?
Is Jermall not doing enough to fix the issue, whatever the issue is? Is it a substance abuse issue?
Saying he's got mental health issues is a blanket term that does not describe what exactly we're talking about here.
It doesn't.
Though based on what they're saying and the fact that Mauricio now claims Jermall is ready to come back, I don't get the sense what we're talking about here is pathology.
Disease.
Mall Charlo, Jermall's brother, says, truthfully, I don't know if he's going to bounce back.
Do you see what I mean? He doesn't treat the subject matter as delicately as Mauricio Suleiman does.
Man, you know, truthfully, I really don't know if he'll bounce back. Mall Charlo told Brian Custer for an episode of the Last Stand podcast. I really don't know, because I'm not in his household. I don't talk to him every day, you know? We kind of get into it like every other year. Every year sometimes, you know? We just never really seen eye to eye on certain things, despite their differences, which Mall Charlo has repeatedly referenced during the build-up towards his fight with Canelo. He's pulling for Mall Charlo to turn his career around. But you know, I wish my brother the best, Mall Charlo continued. I hope he bounces back. He's got a family to feed, got a lot of children he's got to take care of, and he's got bills to pay.
They're brothers and they're twins. But it doesn't sound like they have the best relationship, Jermell and Jermall.
When two personality types are perhaps too similar, that can be good and that can be bad. It all depends on what traits we see in those personalities. Two easygoing brothers are going to be easygoing, whereas two hotheads...
It's World War III waiting to happen.
Jermell stated, I hope he bounces back. He's got a family to feed, got a lot of children he's got to take care of, and he's got bills to pay, and a life to live. So, you know, I don't want it to be, when it's all said and done, everybody's coming in the family to ask me for some bread.
You hear that?
They need to be going to Ask Mall, you know? But I'm gonna be doing everything I can. In my moment, I've got to seize that, and this is it. So if this is what I've got to go through, I've got to go through it. But I do wish him the best. I do hope he bounces back. But to answer that question, it's gonna be really tough for me to answer.
Like I said, Jermell seems a little less than sympathetic to me than Mauricio Suleiman when it comes to Jermall, when it comes to his brother. We know they've had flare-ups over the years. We know they've been at odds with each other, here and now.
Based on Jermell's comments, you get the sense that Jermell views the entire situation as a self-inflicted wound.
It just feels that way.
When you live off of something that makes you have to bounce back, if you're gonna bounce back, go ahead and bounce back and fight for that every day, Mall Charlo said. Let that be your fight. So if anything's wrong with him, it's the fact that you kinda can't get content with having the issue rather than fixing the issue. And so, I think my brother is surrounded. Who you surround yourself with? Who is in there in your ear trying to push you to get better or get off that level that you're at and put you back where you need to be?
You tell me how all of that sounds, guys.
It sounds to me like Jermell views Jermall's situation as a self-inflicted wound where he's not doing enough to pull himself out of it. Now, Jermall himself, He recently opened up about working with Roy Jones Jr., saying that he's mentoring me every step of the way and he's feeling stronger.
You get the sense that they enlisted the aid of Roy Jones Jr. for some positive reinforcement, a positive influence.
Ronnie Shields just kind of linked me up with Roy and his family, Charlo told Robert Newman. We all kicked it at the Spence versus Crawford fight. It was just one of those things. I'm a come and see you, we kicked it. I'm here, enjoying the weather, enjoying the workouts, and picking his brain. He's picking mine, just to get away from distractions. He's done a lot of difference in the way I think and the way I'm carrying things. It's step by step, day by day. Roy Jones is mentoring me every step of the way, and I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'm feeling stronger, feeling back to where I need to be in a clear headspace. Charlo is 33.
And still hopes to enter the ring by the end of the year, though no date has been announced.
If he does get in a fight before this year is out, it likely won't be a middleweight contest. It likely won't be a defense of his WBC title, leaving that title in limbo for something like 3 years.
That aside,
I took some time off to get myself better, Charlo said. I can't quite say I'm fully there yet, but I do want to fight before the end of the year. Everything's going smooth. I had personal issues. I don't really have to speak on it. Y'all probably already know. Just had a couple of personal issues that I had to battle on my own and getting through them. It's better than seeing me in mugshots every so often, getting in trouble with this and that. I couldn't really focus on boxing. I had to take my time and get myself better.
recovering from addiction, maybe?
It seems to be a running theme over there on the PBC side of things. Fighters that don't necessarily behave like fighters, or fighters that don't necessarily aspire to what fighters aspire to. Fighters that want to be anything but fighters. Fighters that rather be entrepreneurs and rappers.
There's nothing wrong with aspiring to do these things once your career is over, or juggling them if you can juggle them. But this is a very jealous sport, a very jealous profession that requires supreme focus.
And over the years, I've noticed that the running theme over there on the PBC side of things is that you got a lot of fighters that want to be and do everything but what fighters do.
Think about how much money the DAZN people offered Mall Charlo for one fight, just one fight with Demetrius Andrade, no strings attached, for like $7 or $8 million.
Has he ever actually made that kind of money for a single contest? You know, DAZN's money was good enough to get Jose Ramirez to cross over for one fight and Mikey Garcia.
Jamal wouldn't take it.
For me and my money, that was a boneheaded move, because I don't think Jamal has actually ever made that kind of money for a single contest. What counsel, what advice was he given from his advisor that led him to where he is now? Because where he is now, his career has no momentum.
Even though he's an unbeaten fighter, he seems on the mend, battling something.
That if all the advice and all the counsel you've received over the years led you here, then perhaps you shouldn't have adhered to it. You would have got that $7 or $8 million against Demetrius, win or lose.
DAZN was willing to overpay. You just didn't capitalize.
If you fought Demetrius now, you wouldn't get for that fight now, which you could have got then.
Dummy.
Now, Mall Charlo's career is in tatters, in shambles. He's on the mend from something. God only knows what. But I reiterate, if all the advice you received from your advisor led you to this point, then it couldn't have been good advice.
How you've been guided?
And I don't know what's going to happen now. It seems to me that his career has been brought to a screeching halt.